Well, who is waiting for cheaper Chinese-made electric vehicles to land in Canada? If you were waiting, you got your wish on Friday night. Tesla adding a $39,500 version of their Model 3 car to their lineup. That's less than half the price of the previous price point for a Model 3 in Canada. The car does not qualify for the Canadian EV rebate since it's made in China, but it does qualify for the $2,000 rebate here in Quebec, bringing the cost down to under $38,000. Now, this comes at a peculiar time in EVs. I should point out the Montreal Electric Vehicle Show canceled this year's edition, citing market conditions. Let's now head over to James Lalli. He's an independent automotive analyst that hails from Montreal. James, welcome back to the program.
Good morning.
So let's talk about the first news here. Friday night, May 1st, and Tesla puts a cheaper version of the Model 3. Do you call this a cheap Chinese EV? How do you describe this vehicle?
I mean, it's a phenomenal vehicle. If you're looking for a vehicle that's very reliable, that has good performance, that have all of the benefits that electric vehicles bring, of course, convenience, driving experience, technology, great value, especially at this price point. It's never been this cheap anywhere in North America.
So this is the cheapest it's been, even in the U.S. Like if you do the exchange rate.
Yes, by far.
Okay, and now do you call it a cheap Chinese EV?
No, in fact, China is by far the world leader in manufacturing of EVs, and so the quality that comes out of China is also, arguably better than what's available from the U.S. Okay. So I wouldn't call it cheap by any means, no.
Okay, so you don't call it cheap because you don't think it's it's interesting, like cheap, either a reference to dollar signs or cheap meaning that it's, poorly constructed here. I guess I want to focus on the dollar signs. Do you consider this to check the box on the promise that we would see cheaper Chinese EVs come to Canada?
I mean, absolutely. I think, and Tesla, obviously, because they already have a sales and distribution network available in Canada, they were obviously the first ones that are able to capitalize on the drop of the tariff rate and being able to import vehicles. Canada essentially is allowing 49,000 units per year of Chinese vehicles to be imported at a 6.1% tariff in the first year of the program. And Tesla was, because of their position, they're able to capitalize on that first. But other manufacturers will follow in the coming years.
Of the 49,000, the quota for this year, is there anyone in a position to take advantage of that? Obviously, Tesla's one of the first ones that are going to be able to take advantage. But what about BYD? I know Polestar already sells here. How do you think that 49,000 quota of Chinese vehicles, how do you think the breakdown will go over the next year?
Well, the lion's share will definitely be Tesla. The other manufacturers, they need some more time to set up direct-to-consumer sales models. They potentially need to build some partnerships, either with other manufacturers of vehicles that they can leverage some service center capacity or repair shops. So there's still a little bit of work for those other manufacturers to do. Some of them may even decide to build independent locations like Tesla has here. If they're looking at the market from a long-term perspective, it makes sense for them to do that. But because of their first mover advantage, the fact that they're already here, Tesla definitely will take advantage of this and fill up the lion's share of that quota in the first year.
If the Tesla is coming here at $39,500, how much do you think the BYD shows up at? And the other Chinese competitors, what does that say for the pricing of the other cars to follow?
It really depends on, there's also regulation in the program, right? In the first year, there's actually no limit. There's no cheap car quota that's required. Any electric vehicle can be brought in and sold at any price. In the subsequent years, every following year after the first year of the program, there's an increasing amount of those vehicles that must be imported under $35,000 Canadian. And that's MSRP. So need to be definitely, from a regulatory perspective, this is going to push less expensive vehicles to be imported. And that's going to create more competition in the local market as well. So I think it's a win for consumers. In the first maybe couple of years, Tesla hasn't, they're in a really good position. We have yet to see what the other manufacturers will bring. They may bring a mix of some of their more expensive vehicles and some of their less expensive vehicles. But even their sort of, quote, more expensive vehicles are still extremely competitive with gas cars when you consider things like maintenance and charging costs.
Well, that's the other thing, right? I'm looking at some of the gas cars that I don't know if you call them competitors. You look at the Toyota Camry, Honda Accord. They seem to be similar priced to this. And I just wonder about the competition that's coming. And I wonder, James, if we could talk about, if we extrapolate from how much, because Tesla has sold this Chinese-made car in Canada before the 100% tariffs, right? If you go by what they used to charge for the car, what they're charging for the car now, what do the trends say on how much electric vehicles will cost in the future? How do you see the costs coming down over the next little while?
I think this price point that they're at right now is probably, going to be more or less where they'll be. Just because if you look at the market, it's already extremely competitive, to your point, against the existing internal combustion engine vehicles on the market in terms of the value that the car provides. Tesla really has work to do, and I think all EV manufacturers still have work to do with education. I think the general public, just in general, does not understand the benefits of EVs, and they don't. Many of them are not aware of the advantages, and they haven't even tried driving one. So I think the price is actually okay. I think it's more a question of how are we going to make people aware of what the benefits are and give them the value, the perspective of this is actually great value.
Should they start to advertise then? Like when, and it's funny because even the EV brands that do advertise, I think sometimes about like I see tons of Polestar ads. I see tons of ads for like the Toyota EVs, that kind of stuff. But I don't think they do a great job of telling people that, hey, EVs are better, right? So does Tesla need to advertise, and does the industry at large need to do a better job of advertising what you just pointed out there?
I've been a vocal proponent of, my opinion has been very clear. I think Tesla, as the leader of this space, should have been much more aggressive on advertising because there's still a number of sort of mistruths that are very, very prominent among people about EVs. People think that these cars the batteries are going to die in 3-4 years, and then they're going to be stuck, and the resale value will plummet, et cetera. There's all these things, and they think the cars won't last very long. All of these things are not true. Like, these are actually great cars that will outlast internal combustion engine cars over the life of the vehicle, at a much lower cost. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, and I think that's probably the biggest barrier, especially in North America. Like, this is not a problem in China. In China, 1 out of 2 vehicles sold has a plug, either a fully electric vehicle or a hybrid electric vehicle, which runs mostly on the electricity component. In North America, the penetration rate of electric vehicles is under 10%. So there's a lot more work to do.
Can I ask you about how much the movement in the States has made things difficult for EVs? It's not lost on me. Since the Trump administration, won the last election, they've made several moves on that front. And we've seen U.S. auto manufacturers, Japanese manufacturers pull back on EV production in the U.S. I wonder what your thoughts are on the impact of those moves and even how those moves trickle up north to Canada.
Yeah, part of it is connected to what we just talked about with respect to awareness. I think fundamentally this is a consumer problem. It's not necessarily a regulatory problem, because if the consumer was able to understand the value proposition better, they would make the decision on their own to buy the vehicle at the price that these vehicles are currently sold on the market. The regulatory side doesn't help, however. There were much more stringent environmental regulations which made it such that manufacturers of internal combustion engine vehicles would, for example, have to reach a certain quota of clean engine or EV sales, and if they didn't, they would have to pay for Tesla's regulatory credits. They'd have to buy credits from Tesla or other manufacturers of EVs. So it essentially increased their cost of doing business, which provides incentive from a regulatory perspective to invest in technology that will eventually lower those costs for them. So that part has been removed, and that's not going to make anything easier for sure. That's going to make it still more challenging. But I think the crux of the matter comes down to the consumer is just not aware.
Can I ask you if you think that the Chinese companies, to wrap up here, the Chinese companies that now have this opening to come into the Canadian market, if any of them might be hesitant? There's already been pushback from Toyota and Honda. They started a lobby group, and they're not happy that Canada's letting in Chinese EVs, and Toyota and Honda employ thousands of people in the country. Is there any worry, you think, from the Chinese brands like, hey, you know what, the Canadian situation, maybe next year they'll change their minds? Or, in a few years there'll be a new government that will change their minds. Do you think that's a risk for Chinese brands if they want to come to Canada?
I don't think so, because the quota is set, it's pretty low. It's only going to reach 70,000 units per year in 5 years. It's only at 49,000 units per year right now. So this is very low. This is a fraction of the Canadian auto market. Of course, the incumbent competitors from Japan and from the U.S. are potentially concerned, but that's because they know that they're going to be competing with potentially much better vehicles than they currently do right now. So yeah. I think that's to be expected.
James, got to leave it there. Thanks for your insight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Independent automotive analyst James Lalli there.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.